I got her this far. I thought that meant we were on.
And welcome to the May 12th Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Commissioner Jim Fisher, and I'm the Vice Chairman of the LCB. Mayor Bates is out of town, so I'll be chairing the meeting today. You all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we'd like to have Miss Lisa Smith call the roll.
Good morning. One second here. I printed out the wrong roll call sheet, but it won't be in alphabetical order, but I'm going to do it. Smith,
Present.
Melia, Berry,
Present.
Mabry,
Present.
Santiago, Bates, Races, Baldwin,
Present.
Fisher,
Here.
Zabritsky,
Present.
Witt,
Present.
Uribe, Arnold, Jennings,
Present.
Olson,
Present.
Stone,
Present.
Olds, Campbell.
Present.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Miss Lisa. Next, Miss Whittington will review the agenda. Miss Whittington, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members and those who are joining us online. We do have one change on the agenda today, and that is the presenter for your item 7C, the presentation on the Human Services Transportation Plan that is being presented for approval today. Our presenter will be Ms. Emily Davis with links. I'd also like to call attention to this board. We had 2 resignations that resulted from employment changes. Mr. Chad Ballard, who represented the medical community, resigned, and Ms. Crystal Ford. Both of them took additional different jobs, and they're no longer eligible to serve on the LCB. So we're going to be working over the next few months to get those seats filled. We want to say welcome this morning to new members, Cheryl Stone, who is seated to my right, and Ms. Maricel Mabry, who is also seated to my right, and Ms. Charlotte Campbell, who you have seen. She is serving in the capacity of our at-large non-voting member. So if there is an absence of any of the members, Ms. Campbell is able to step right in, and she has been participating. I'd also like to thank those who expressed interest in attending the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged Conference in July. All of those spots have been secured, and because this conference is here in Orlando, we have the opportunity to take a couple of additional volunteers. So once we return, you should be excited to hear from them about what they have learned at that conference. We're going to be able to divide and conquer and go to those sessions and just soak up all of that knowledge. So I'm really excited about that. And Mr. Chair, this concludes my announcements. We're ready to proceed with that one change on the agenda. And if it is your pleasure you might want to acknowledge the new members and see if they might want to introduce themselves.
Ms. Cheryl, do you have anything to say at this time?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone for letting me return to the board and filling a very, very wonderful person, Miss Valerie Barber Simpson's place. Never 20 years ago when I started being an advocate did I ever think that I would sort of be sitting in her seat. No one can fill her slot, and I hope to do her proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Ms. Marisol, do you have anything to say?
Not at this moment.
Thank you very much. How about Miss Charlotte back there? Hit your little button to turn the speaker on.
Hello, everybody. I feel like getting to know everyone and little by little the names. It's my second or third meeting, and I'm happy to be here and to serve whatever I can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's all give them a hand for joining this group. Now, Ms. Whittington, it's time to move on to the public comment on action items. There are 2 public comment periods on this agenda. Comments of a general nature will be heard towards the end of the meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on either of the 4 action items before us today, we ask that you please provide your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less.
There are no
Yes,
raised on the virtual side, Mr. Chair.
you are recognized, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised on the virtual side.
I
And
thought somebody was talking.
right, she's going to acknowledge, because we have access for the public who may join virtually. Kathy is in that virtual room, and if anyone raises their hand, she'll let you know.
Is this your script or is this mine?
I don't
here?
know I don't think there's any public comments in person at this time, Lisa?
No, we haven't received any in person.
And there have not been any on the phone. So we're ready to go to the minutes. The
Yes,
approval of
ma'am.
The February minutes. Thank
The
you.
next item of business is the approval of the February 12th minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if we can back up just for a moment, we do have a Quality Assurance Task Force report from Ms. Baldwin.
I was hoping you'd forget.
We're gonna press your button.
Okay. The Quality Assurance Task Force met on April 26th, and this was our first face-to-face meeting. Mr. Wayne Olson was elected as vice chair, and this vacancy is due to Ms. Crystal Ford no longer being eligible to serve on the local coordinating because of a job change. Fingers are sticky. And we reviewed and recommended approval of the draft Transit Development Services Plan. We reviewed and recommended approval of the draft Human Services Transportation Plan. We reviewed and recommended approval of the 2022 2023 TD rate calculations. Lastly, we received an update from Access Links Mobility Services, and our next meeting is July 26, 2022. Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ready for item 7B? We have the approval of the draft TDSB minor updates. Y'all have had a copy, a chance to read it?
Good morning. I am Trish Witten, Senior Planner, Strategic Planning at Links, and I'm going to go through some of the revisions that we made this year. The Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan is an annually updated tactical plan. It's updated by Links as the Community Transportation Coordinator in coordination with Metro Plan, the planning agency. It is submitted to the Florida Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged for approval. It's approved by this board, and then it's submitted for the final approval, and it's a requirement for funding. So major updates are due every 5 years, and minor updates are due in the interim years. This is a minor update. Next year, we'll be doing our major update, and we're preparing for that now. So I'll just go through the minor changes that we made. There's 3 sections. The first section is the development plan, and this includes the baseline conditions, goals and objectives, implementation program, and needs assessment. So the first thing we did was switch out the certification chairperson signature page, which will be signed after the document's approved, but before it's sent to the commission. We also updated the board roster to the most current February 22 version. And we updated some of the text in the introduction that had some of our COVID safety protocols that we've done over the last year. We went ahead and took that out and then just mentioned that Links has provided more than 1,000 COVID vaccination and testing trips. We also updated the year for the Human Services Transportation Program, and you'll get a presentation next from Emily to go through that update that they just completed. We changed out the Links organization charts to reflect the most current staffing, as well as our service area maps, so we reflect any changes that have occurred since our last annual update last year. Every year we look at the plans that have been updated in the area and just make sure that our TDSP is consistent with local planning efforts. So we did that again this year. We also replaced the TDLCB certification page for the March 2022 update. And then we took a look at the demographics that's within this development plan. The most current set of demographics that was available is through the American Community Survey, the 2016 through 2020 estimates. So they were pretty consistent with what we've seen over the past year. The population in housing has had a slight decrease of about 2%, but the age distribution throughout the 3 counties remained about the same. We also look at University of Florida Bureau of Economic and Business Research projections, and those remain consistent with what we saw last year, that Osceola County is still the fastest growing county within our state. I think they've had about 45% growth from 2010 to 2020, and Orange County's up there too with 25% growth during that same period. In Florida this last year is the 2nd fastest growing state. Just Texas is up before us. So we're seeing a lot of growth in the area. And we look at labor force and unemployment, which is down a little bit. It's down to, I think it was 3.8% as of January 22. And I think it was like 6.8% last year when we looked at it. So we know it's going down, but we also know that affordable housing is an issue in our region that continues to affect our labor force. So each year, Mobility Services also pulls the major trip generators and attractors for the calendar year, so we can see where most of the trips are going. And that is also consistent. The dialysis is still our top transportation disadvantaged trip generator. There's a section in the plan for TD forecasts, and we did not update that for this minor update. That'll be updated in the major update, and that's where we look at the next 10 years how the population is, the TD population is projected to grow. Within the needs assessment, that section will be updated with our major update. Also, we'll do some public outreach and some stakeholder interviews. But we do have the Human Services Transportation Plan that Emily will go over, which rolls into our TDSP as an appendices. And they covered a lot of needs in that section, so we just update ours to make sure that we're still consistent. And we also mentioned that our general transit feed, which was in pilot mode last year, is now live. So passengers can go on and look at bus stop accessibility, sidewalk availability before going out for that trip. So that's pretty exciting. And this minor update is kind of like a self-assessment for Lynx, so we have the opportunity to go through our goals and objectives and see how we're working towards achieving those. So we made status updates within the text to show that under Goal 1, we providing just over 900 Access Plus trips each month, and those are the trips where the passengers can ride the fixed route with a companion free of charge. And then also within Goal 3, we look at the number of days, the average number of days it's taking to resolve a complaint. And right now, I think we were around 10.5 days. So there's things that Lynx has been doing to improve that. We're hiring, we've had staffing shortages, so we're hiring. And then we also have the My Access texting capabilities now, as well as the web access. And then the implementation schedule is updated each year just to revise the timelines if changes are needed. So the only revision for this plan was that Mobility Services has put together a standardized TD presentation package. So we went ahead and marked that as complete. The second section is the service plan, and this is where we note our service standards and policies. So within this section, updates included reflecting that new ADA eligibility category, and that is the permanent continued eligibility. So if there's a passenger who is unable to use the fixed route system or has a disability that's unlikely to improve, they can get that permanent continued eligibility now. We also look at the breakdown between subscription and demand response trips, and that has been trending where subscription trips are going down and demand response trips are going up. So I think this go round, subscription trips were down to about 40% and demand response is up to about 60%. We removed taxi trips from the mobility model because we're not providing those at this time. And we also updated that 18 vehicles have been added to the fleet to upgrade the paratransit inventory. Table 10 just shows those coordinated contractors that coordinate with Lynx to provide service. So we updated any changes to Table 10. Tables 11 and 12 are our most current vehicle inventories for the paratransit service. And then we are required to put in the most current system safety program certification for the past year. We also look at the service standards. There weren't any changes during this update to the service standards, but in previous years, we've had a section where we discuss call hold times, because that's always a topic that we like to follow and see how they're going. So last year, we saw a big decline in call hold time. It was down to 50-something seconds, and that had a lot to do with the decline in trips with COVID and also some new technologies that were introduced. So they did go up a little bit this time. I think the average call hold time was 1 minute and 7 seconds. We know some months were higher than that, so we track that closely, and we're looking at new customer contact software as well as a new phone system, and we'll continue to monitor that within the major update. And the My Access text messaging capabilities, of course, that allows a message to be sent when the driver's on the way, so that can help with reducing the number of calls. The CTD calculated rates are required. Each year, our finance department goes through the spreadsheets and updates our rates that we submit to the CTD, and that is a separate action item for this board, so Norm will go into more detail on that in the next presentation. I just want to mention that we are required to do that. And the last section of the plan is the quality assurance section, and this gives us the opportunity to look at the local process for evaluating the CTC. And we know right now the evaluation, it was underway during QATF, and I believe Virginia's going to present later on the results of that evaluation. So what we did was leave a placeholder within our plan, and then we'll update it after this meeting. We did look at the fiscal year 1920 evaluation, and there were no findings in need of corrective action. So we did note that within the plan. And then attachments, those are the new ADA application as well as the most current grievance procedures were updated in the attachments. And that concludes the minor updates for the TDSP this year. Does anyone have any questions about the update? We will be asking the board for approval to submit.
Do we have a motion to approve? So moved. A second, please. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next item, we'll have a draft human services transportation plan. Ms. Davis?
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Emily Davis, and I am the Human Services Transportation Analyst at Lynx. Today, I'll be presenting on our 2022 Human Services Transportation Plan update. I will cover the plan methodology, a Section 5310 background summary, existing conditions, results from peer reviews, data obtained from outreach surveys, and the action plan. First, a demographic analysis was performed using the 2019 American Community Survey, and public user outreach process was conducted to research local needs. The analysis was compared to existing services. Then, gaps and overlaps in service were identified and used to establish the goals and strategies outlined in the plan. The Section 5310 program addresses transportation service needs for seniors and individuals with disabilities. The plan is structured to improve services under the program by removing barriers to transportation, expanding transportation options for the transportation disadvantaged community, and improving mobility for the transportation disadvantaged. Lynx is the local community transportation coordinator, and the Metro Plan Orlando Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board provides oversight to identify local service needs and address gaps in service and provide advice to Lynx on coordination of services under the Transportation Disadvantaged program. Lynx is also the designated recipient of Section 5310 funds for the Orlando and Kissimmee urbanized area. Program success is measured by annual ridership, increasing services, effectiveness of capital and technology investments, improving the quality of the user experience, and effectiveness in addressing gaps in service. These are the existing transportation services that were evaluated by our contractor when conducting the plan. The existing services that were reviewed include fixed route bus, bus rapid transit, express bus, NeighborLink, Disney Direct, paratransit, and vanpool. Our contractor reviewed the 3 Lynx plans listed here, as well as the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged annual operating report to identify existing conditions and provide recommendations, with particular attention being paid to services for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Both best practice and peer review studies were conducted in state and out of state with the intention of comparing services of other transportation entities similar to Lynx in terms of regional demographics or innovative practices that could be adopted by Lynx. The agencies were selected based on their successful innovative coordination programs. In-state studies were conducted for Broward County, Jacksonville, and Miami-Dade. Out-of-state studies were conducted for the Kansas City area and the Madison, Wisconsin metro area. A key finding was that there was movement towards technology solutions, including real-time data and scheduling software. All of the demographics shown in the plan come from the 2019 American Community Survey. While the maps appear small in this presentation, the plan contains the maps and full details regarding the demographics and the Lynx service area. Seniors represent an average of 20.9% of Florida's population, but notably, the Poinciana population contains 37.3% seniors. Other Lynx service areas with high senior populations include Winter Park, Maitland, East Colonial Drive, and Zellwood. Individuals with disabilities represent an average of 13.5% of Florida's population. However, an average of 30.3% of the downtown Orlando population are disabled. Other Lynx service areas with high disabled populations include Orange County, Orla Vista, Osceola County, downtown Kissimmee, downtown St. Cloud, Seminole County, and Sanford. Low-income persons represent an average of 8.7% of Florida's population, but notably, an average of 45% of the East Pine Hills population have low income. Other Lynx service areas with large low-income populations include Orange County, Paramore and Callahan neighborhoods, Osceola County, and Sanford. And veterans represent an average of 6.5% of Florida's population. However, an average of 13.9% of the downtown Sanford population are veterans. Other specific areas with a large veteran population include East Colonial Drive, Zellwood, and Conway. A regional assessment of needs was conducted in the plan to identify areas that require increased services for elderly, disabled, veteran, low-income, and minority populations for the areas listed here. The report contains more details on steps that will be taken to close those gaps in service and also progress that has been made in these areas since the last Human Services Transportation Plan update in 2019. 20 major employers were identified in the Lynx service area, and most are within proximity to Lynx transportation services. Compared to the prior Human Services Transportation Plan update, employment in entertainment and tourism has decreased, while employment in healthcare has increased due to COVID-19. The entertainment and tourism industries are now starting to pick up as Florida tourism returns to pre-pandemic levels. Our contractor also reviewed activity centers, including colleges and universities, community centers, senior centers, and hospitals. To conduct its gap analysis, our contractor gathered information from the public through various meetings, surveys, and interviews conducted in November 2021 through January 2022. Identified gaps were the needs for additional funding for replacement vehicles, matters related to on-time performance and access to various training, the cost of service, safety and security matters, availability of weekend and night services, and healthcare and technology access issues. This is a snapshot of some of the areas where gaps were identified for the transportation disadvantaged population within the Links service area. The recent developing areas of Lake Nona and Horizons West currently have limited transit services. The plan also notes some rural areas that could benefit from additional Section 5310 funding. And there are more needs identified in the plan. There are a number of specific actions that were identified in the plan that Links intends to implement in the coming years. In the area of external outreach and marketing, we have an action plan to improve the Links website, the Section 5310 program onboarding, and the promotion of Mobility Week. In the area of education and training, we have an action plan to improve professional development training and workshops and programs and provide annual sensitivity training. And lastly, in the area of coordinated planning, we have an action plan to continue strong coordination with regional partners, pursue grant opportunities to fund innovations, hold semi-annual meetings for subrecipient agencies, conduct bi-monthly and quarterly meetings, and improve progress tracking. That concludes my presentation of the 2022 Human Services Transportation Plan update. And at this point, I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davis. Very informative.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
I do. I appreciate your presentation. I'm just curious, where did you guys collect your data? On
For the
basically
maps,
Seniors, people of poverty and things like that, where was that data collected? Like
we used census data in the 2019 American Community Survey, but it was based on the census tracts.
Oh, I mean, but on the financial part?
About the low-income persons, that's also the census.
Okay, because I don't remember being asked what we made on the census when I filled mine out. No, because my concern is in the Hispanic community, it was very underrepresented in the census tract, so I feel like it's a little slated in one way. And then I have a question. On your downtown, you've got 30.3% on your disabled. Is that because of all the senior housing? Are you considered, because what is the criteria of disabled? Is that people who use something to help them? Because I think of all the senior housing that's downtown, and then I think of also the services like Coalition and all these things. So can you share how that is brought together to have such a huge percentage?
To collect that information, I believe that's from the census data as well. If you would like to see me after, I can get you in contact with our contractor that directly was working with the data to address some of those details.
Well, my concern is that the zip codes that we see at the county aren't matching with what you're showing. So I'm trying to figure out, where are you getting this? Was it a private company that did the study for you? And that's where it's at?
If that's correct, it is a outside company that collected the information, but they collected it from the census.
So they just took that data and kind of made it. They don't have any real touch here locally. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Uribe. We have a request to approve the draft Human Services Transportation Plan. Do I hear a motion?
Is that the plan that we just heard?
Yes.
I mean, I have concerns with that plan. I don't think it's as accurate about Central Florida as the numbers that we're seeing. If you guys, I don't feel comfortable voting on it because I don't feel that it's accurate. But they used a private company, but if you guys want to pass it, I just won't, I'll just vote against it because I don't think it is completely accurate.
Well within your rights.
Right, and Mr. Chairman, if I can just add, the census data that they use is much of the same data that Metro Plan Orlando uses when we identified the underserved and the poverty areas that is used in our data collection as well. So the most recent census data and the American Community Survey is what we have available at that time. But no one goes out like door to door. So we use the data that is
Well, my
provided
concern,
to us.
it's not, I totally believe that the census data was used. I know that people were underrepresented in census, and then I look at what we at the county are saying, and as we're saying, as heat areas of poverty, they don't match up with what this is coming out, and our data is much more hands-on. So, that's fine, I mean, you guys can approve it, that's no problem, I just don't think it's as accurate, that's all.
Perhaps in the future, you could expand your research to include other items, such as the Orange County report.
Or at least have information more concrete on how this data was actually presented, because I mean, there's just a lot of information that it's just kind of like, just information. I mean, we don't have any way of knowing how that was done, what were the measures? Like, do you consider someone disabled who just carries a cane, or someone in a wheelchair, or a walker? Like, there's such an array of disabled that, you know, anybody who has a handicap, you know, so to me, it'd just be nice to know more how you identify these groups, because 30.3 is large when you're saying in downtown Orlando.
Right, that makes complete sense. So I agree, in the future updates, we'll definitely have a greater focus on the regionally coordinated plans in collecting our data. And we will get you in contact with the agency that directly worked on the plan to straighten out any details. But our understanding is that it was based on census data and the 2019 American Community Survey
And were they census tracts or census zip codes?
tracks.
Mr. Chair, what we could also do is to have this approved, it's on a timeline. We can have you all to go ahead and approve this for submission to the the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. And then at your next meeting, we can come back and take a deeper dive into that data to share exactly how it was gathered, and what, if there's any difference, we could file an amended report to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged.
Chair recognizes Ms. Cheryl. You had your microphone on. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty viable idea, in that your presentation is based on what probably the standard is. Everybody does use the census, and the third-party person, but we want it, as Commissioner Yearbeck said, we want it to be unique to our particular community. And I noticed that also, that there are some deviations there that are specific to the life that we lead here in Central Florida. And if there's a way that we can make it our own, you know, with an amendment or an additional survey of some kind, but to hash that out, that might not be a bad idea.
Thank you for the comments. Anyone else? Do we have a motion to approve?
The
Virginia offered.
draft?
With the amendment.
Well, the amendment would come
Motion to
later.
approve the amendment.
Marilyn, if you would include in your motion, that staff would bring back more details on the, we're using the census data that is used for the designations and identification of those underserved communities and people with disabilities.
My amendment includes what Ms. Virginia just said.
Do we have a second?
Second, Almeida.
Any other questions? All those for approval, say aye. Aye. Those approved? Opposed?
No.
Thank you. Let the record show. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you so much.
Next item we have is Mr. Norm Hinckley. For approval of rate calculation.
Yeah, and Emily warmed up the crowd for me, so good.
There you go.
No, I'm teasing her. So, well, a little bit of good news. This is something that we have to bring before this board on an annual basis, and these are the rates that are used to bill the commission from the trip and equipment grant on an monthly basis for each of the trips. And you can actually see in this era of everything else going up in price, that this actually went down a little bit. So a little bit of good news there. It's quite an extensive process that our finance team goes through. They have a worksheet that they have to go, it's like 7 pages long. It calculates the revenues and the expenses and the anticipated trips, et cetera. And then it brings out the number, and it provided the $40.90 for the ambulatory trips, and then $70.11 for the wheelchair trips. So with that, would ask for your consideration and approval of these rates. Just as a side note, they have already been reviewed by the commission. They looked at all the worksheets and the backup data, and they approved this information coming to you, this board.
Okay, item D is the approval of the rate calculation.
Motion, said motion for approval.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Nika Berry.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hinckley?
I have one. Now we get you in person? You wait, you're coming up next.
I know.
No, thank you, that was it.
Thank you, Emily. No.
Are you saving your discussion for the next
Yes.
item? Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's coming.
Change all those diesel vehicles to gas.
Yes,
You'll see it go
thank you,
down.
Commissioner.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
And the stage is still yours.
Yes, sir. So thank you, Chair and members of the board. And so this is our Mobility Services CTC report for the local coordinating board. And with that, we'll provide just a very, very brief, not too long, but overview. Let you know a little bit about the Access Links demand, customer service activity, ongoing initiatives that we are implementing to improve the service and the customer experience, and any questions that you may have. And I understand there's already one waiting in the wings, so we're prepared. So as an overview, just for the last 3 months or so, we have noticed a remarkable increase in the demand for trips. We are starting to get a lot closer to pre-COVID numbers. Just to give you an example, yesterday we were over 2,200 trips for a Wednesday. That is getting pretty close again to where we were before all this COVID stuff happened. Call volume is much higher. Again, ETAs and asking where their trips are from the customers is still the #1 generator of those calls, as are reservations. Had a lot of staff challenges that we had to mitigate. Had a lot of turnover in our mobility services reps. We've had a lot of hiring and recruitment of bus operators, which, as you all well know, about this time last year, we were in a real significant hurt for people that wanted to go provide this service and drive our buses. So we've been able to overcome that and mitigate. And then we've transitioned now to a mask optional on all our vehicles. As you know, the CDC and the TSA have removed the requirement for a mask on everybody. However, we still encourage folks that if they feel comfortable or more comfortable being in a closed and confined vehicle and they want to wear a mask, then we'll make those available for them. So just a real quick kind of show you January, February, and March. We're 37,000, almost 38,000 trips in January this year. We're up in March, we're at 45,000, and we continue to increase. So we're seeing those numbers get right back up to very close to where they were prior to COVID. And we broke it all down for you here, showing January, February, March. The ADA still is the largest trip volume that we have. TD is very significant though, and so we're gaining on it. Substantial increase over 2021. Something that we, as mentioned by Patricia just a little bit ago, the call answer rate is something that we watch very carefully. And then this, also the productivity of our mobility services reps. So we broke it out in January, February, March, calls answered per agent. In March, we had 63 calls per agent. That's per day. And average speed of answer in March was 1 minute, 33 seconds. Again, we're continuing to focus a lot on making sure that people don't have to wait very long. There's still going to be hold times. There are times when it's just unfortunate, but overall, we're doing much better than the 5 minutes and longer that we had a little over a year ago. So we're trying to be very cognizant of that. And you can see the number of calls are also going up too. 47,513 answered calls. And then folks that for whatever reason, whether they just hung up or they called on their lunchtime and they couldn't get through and so they had to go back to work, but we had almost 5,000 of those calls that were abandoned. Ongoing initiatives, we're very proud that we have moved into our new paratransit operating center off of Industrial Way. That's just north of our operating facility there on John Young in Princeton. And that is working out very, very well for us. So we have moved all of our operations from the old LB McLeod facility, which was right next to the waste management system there. So it's a much cleaner, much healthier, much more friendly environment for all our employees and contractors to work out of. Operator recruitment, I'm proud to say, is still going very strong. We are at our numbers. There's always a turnover. People get into it. They start driving for a while. They find out it's not necessarily the work that they might have wanted. Others completely fall in love with it and couldn't have anything that's better for them. So, but we're maintaining a good, strong workforce in our operators, and they're doing a great job. And you know, we've had some minor hiccups in some of the training that has gone on, and so we've had a couple mistakes, but we're learning from those. We're also upgrading our reservation and scheduling system. We actually want to get into the cloud where we can make sure that we always have a good business continuity. So in case something happens, there's a disruption, we can always go back, keep people's records up to date. As you might recall, a couple years ago, we had a lapse there and where we lost some data, and we don't want to have that again. So we've been working very hard to upgrade our software system so it's in the cloud, and then we can retrieve it within a very short period of time. And then the My Access tracking system, this is where you can go and sign up for it, and you can track your ride coming to you. I know Bob uses it, and unfortunately he's not here, but it's been working out very well. In fact, as we just went through a very minor update to that, so it should even enhance that service even more for the folks that are using it. We are working right now on texting and messaging capabilities so that when you make a reservation the night before, you will either get an email, you'll get a text message, or you'll get a voice message. And you can opt into this service, confirming that you still need the ride, and then that day of your trip, you will get a text or a email or a voice message saying that your trip is on its way, and making sure that you still are going to be ready for that trip. You don't need to cancel it, et cetera. So that's something that hopefully when we have our next meeting, we will have that already in place and implemented, and then we can hopefully maybe get some testimonials from people that are actually using it and see how it's working for them and whatever next improvements we might need to make. Trip negotiations, if you notice now, when somebody calls in prior or in the recent past, if you called in and said, I want an 8 o'clock trip, the reservationist would make that 8 o'clock trip for you. And unfortunately, the system wouldn't tie into how many other people have called in and made that reservation for 8 o'clock, which may have taxed the amount of resources that we have available at that 8 o'clock AM hour. And it might have created where there was a long wait time for that vehicle, or even there was a longer trip that you had to be on the vehicle longer than necessary. So we're trying to shorten those down, make it much more efficient and effective for our passengers. So now when you call, the system will know if there's already quite a few 8 a.m. trips scheduled, it will ask or show to our reservationists, why don't you ask them to see if they can be picked up at 7:45 a.m. or maybe 8:15 a.m. And if that's convenient, it's not like a doctor's appointment, but you're going to the store or you go into a recreational type outing, that might work for you. That will also give you a better pickup time, but also shorten the length of trip, because you might be routed on a different bus that can get you there much quicker and consequently increase your positive experience. And then we're still working on a new phone system and customer contact system, and I know that's being worked out by the legal team and under contracts and everything, but it is coming. So we're looking forward to it because it's something that's been long overdue, and we really want to get that in place. So that is my report. A lot of exciting things are happening. A lot of growth is happening, but appreciate any feedback or questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Now you're on.
Norm, thank you for all you do. So, you know,
Appreciate it.
it's actually not that bad.
I know.
I just have a quick question. We've seen an uptick in COVID cases here in Orange County, and curious, has that affected at all you guys with paratransit? Because I was worried about close quarters and vulnerable individuals.
It really hasn't. We've been seeing the numbers of trips increasing. So, you know, I don't know if it's people become accustomed to it, if that's the lack of a better term, or a little more comfortable making sure that they have a mask on and knowing how to social distance. So we're not putting anything in place just yet. Obviously, we'll follow the lead of the CDC if it becomes necessary, or obviously the Orange County Health Department or whatever, you know, Seminole or Osceola, et cetera. So, but right now, we're just operating as normal and making sure if people want masks, they can have them. And, you know, our operators, if they want to wear a mask, they can do so.
Okay, so it's completely optional at this point.
It's optional at this
Okay.
point.
And in your call center, have you kept those people at home?
They
or-
are still remote, and the plan is to keep them remote.
Okay. Sounds
Haven't
good.
made any, you know, decisions about trying to bring them back in. It seems to be a really nice benefit. They don't have to commute, keeps them off. They don't have to pay the gas prices at $5 a gallon, which is a nice benefit.
$4.49.
Well, one of the managers today complained that it was $5, like it was my fault. I don't know whether, I'm paying it too, so, yeah.
Just curious on that, only because you talk about call volumes and she even asked me on the abandoned calls, you pretty much keep track of every call that comes in. So is the abandoned calls equated when somebody goes to pick up and there's no one there? And so is that considered, is that how you track it?
I would have to check specifically. I think it's more that they just hung up or got disconnected somehow. We would never hang up on them or shut them down, but.
Because when you said all calls that come in,
Yes.
and then abandoned calls, so I'm assuming that when that agent goes to that call, whether they're on hold.
Right.
And there's no one there, they just go and put abandoned
Well, we don't put it in, it's abandoned, the system
automatically.
so,
Okay.
right, so a call comes in, if it gets answered by a rep, then it's answered. If they hang up prior to that rep answering that call, then it's an abandoned call,
Okay,
for whatever the reason, yeah.
all right, that's all I had.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Norm, very happy to hear all of the good things that are happening at Access Links, and thank you for all that you do for all of us. Whenever I email or call you, you are Johnny on the spot. Since your call center reps are working at home, I would like to ask you to, when it is possible, to consider hiring applicants with disabilities, since they don't have to travel to and from work as long as they are qualified.
And we
And I
do.
hope that is a commitment that we could have from you.
That is something that we do, and that is a commitment that we will continue to do.
Very good, very good. And I'm still hearing concerns from riders about scheduling, that, in some cases it's not working. And I realize that's something that's a continual thing. And hopefully maybe with the trip negotiations, we can do better on that.
And that's our intent. And so we are working with the software on a continuous basis to make sure that we've refined. And, as new situations come up and we go, wow, we didn't think about that, we go back and as a team, we get together and we try to adjust and make whatever new adjustments we have to make. Again, with the idea of always thinking about the customer and what he or she has to put up with and make sure their experience is as best as it possibly can be.
Okay, and just one more. Can you go over the new procedure for renewing eligibility for an individual that has a permanent disability?
Yeah, I mean, it's just they get a letter and it's a card, and we just confirm that they have the right information, correct? It's that simple.
Say that again?
It's just confirming that the information hasn't changed.
Very good, very good.
Right.
Okay.
Cheryl?
Okay. Hi, nice to see you
Hi,
again.
Cheryl. Good to see you again.
Great presentation. Well, Marilyn took my hiring people with disabilities to do this at home, because we've talked about that in the past, so yay. I wanted to ask about the text, email, voicemail, contact with the client to determine if they still want to go on that trip, and then to follow up the next day. Are they going to be required to give an answer, like a response, like hit C to confirm on your text message or something like that?
That's what we'd like to get to,
Okay.
so that we have that confirmation. Now, we wouldn't necessarily, I don't think, cancel a trip just because we didn't get it.
Yeah.
But if you don't need it, and, maybe something happened in life, and now that trip that you needed a week ago, no longer need, you can, cancel it there the night before, and then that way it would take it off the schedule.
So
and
there,
free it.
obviously there'll be fine tuning.
Right.
And maybe even a pilot or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what we
Yeah.
want to do.
Okay.
So some of you have been contacted, and some of our clients have been contacted to be part of that, what we call the beta testing. And again, not everybody needs to, we're not just going to roll it out and everybody
Right.
automatically be on it. It's going to be something that you opt in. So after we get through the testing process, a client calls in, says, I need a trip. Oh, by the way, would you like to sign up for text, an email, or get a voice message? And if they say nope, then that's
What are
the
you gonna do?
prerogative. So
Right.
we're not just going to force it on anybody.
And my last question is, how are you going to get the information to the clients with all these positive changes and things that are in the work and that are actually starting up, a newsletter, or how do you communicate all the great things that you
Most
plan to
likely,
do?
we will come out with we'll put it on our website. We'll come out with, obviously, we'll train all of our mobility services reps. So every phone call that comes in, they'll have that personal contact with the client who's making that reservation, let them know what's going on, and then letters going out to our clients.
And could you possibly put something on the line when you're on hold, as short a time as that's
Sure.
going to be?
Oh, absolutely. That's the easiest thing to do.
Okay,
Absolutely. Oh,
to
yes.
please check our website. We have some
Oh,
really great
yes,
things going.
we have
Yeah.
found that's
Cool.
probably one of the best ways to communicate something, if you put a little message out there, because
Yeah.
then people right away start calling and say, hey, I want that service, or,
Yeah.
et cetera, so.
Instead of music. Yeah.
Or me
Okay.
singing, that could be worse, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
Hum along with Norm, yes.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Norm.
You're
Ride
welcome.
along, but sing
Sing
There you
along,
go.
yeah.
We can all sing Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round.
That would add to the abandoned calls, I can assure you, so.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Anything,
Hinkle.
okay,
Any
great.
other questions?
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Hinkling, I have a comment and maybe a suggestion, or hopefully something a little bit more definitive can be done regarding the transportation of members, who come to the meeting here. The drivers don't seem to know exactly the point of disembarkation, because this is the second time I've come to the meeting, and they drop me all around, and I have to walk and walk and walk. They don't seem to know where the docking station is, and I feel at this stage there should be something made more positive for the drivers to know, where you come on Orange and you turn this way and you get to the docking station. We should not have to be going through this every time that we come to a meeting, that they are not sure where the drop-off point is, and one has to be struggling to find Metro Plan. I feel that at this stage, something should be put into the instructions for the drivers to know exactly where they should be dropping the passenger to come to the meetings here.
It is it's on their manifest. So,
This morning, he did not know where to drop me, and we went round and round, and finally he dropped me in one area, and I had to traverse the whole area, come around, and then come up the steps, and it was, and I'm not knowing the area myself.
right.
I got a little bit confused, and I feel that and this guy has been working at this Lynx for 13 years. So I feel that at this point, he should know where they're to be dropped off a Metro Plan. If there was some way that this could be, you say it's documented, but maybe the drivers.
It's documented, and I'm gonna go look at your trip specifically to see what was put in.
Yes.
Because,
We went first of all to an area, and then he said, no, this is where it is. And then I said, this is not familiar to me, I'm not getting out, because I have too much walking to do. And he got out of the bus and spoke to one of the gentlemen, and they told him where to go. Well, I'm telling you, had he dropped me off there, I would have had so much walking to do, because he went around and around and around before he finally came to the point where he dropped me off, and I still had a lot of walking to do.
Okay.
So I just feel that at this stage, this is something that, since it's the meeting that's held here regularly, that the drivers should be told where to go.
and they are, and obviously it didn't work
Yeah.
perfectly, so I apologize for that.
Yes,
So,
yes.
not gonna make any excuses, and I'm gonna go look at what happened. But, this address is well-known, and, again, it goes into their manifest, and there's notes in there, and then also the dispatchers know for this address. So, if the driver gets confused,
Yeah.
he or she has that opportunity to call the dispatcher, and they should be able to go guide them. But I'll go find out what happened on this
Thank you.
particular
Just a
case.
suggestion, and
And I appreciate that.
felt that should be taken up.
Thank you, Ms. Charlotte.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Virginia.
Good morning again, members. We can consider this the data dump meeting because we're just inundating you all with data. As Trish mentioned earlier, this is the meeting where we report the results of your Community Transportation Coordinator, or CTC, evaluation. I want to say thank you to all of you who participated in this exercise a couple of months ago. The CTC evaluation is required annually for this to be completed. In those ensuing years of the vendor having a contract, now this would be the last year that we go through this with the current vendor. There's an RFP that's on the street. Once there's a new vendor, we start this process all over again. And so the evaluation method that we have used is that the CTC, or the CTD, which is the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged, they establish the criteria that we use to do the evaluation. We have since used electronic means by which you all submit these, so we translate these into a SurveyMonkey to make it easier for you to submit these. the evaluation period seems to cause a little bit of pause from time to time because it's difficult to evaluate something that was a year, it's really a year old. So you're evaluating from June 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. And there are 5 broad categories that you evaluate: coordination, administration, cost effectiveness, local performance measures, and availability. And for this, I wanted to kind of synthesize this because the results were so good this year. Instead of going through them one by one, I just wanted to give you a snapshot with the coordination of operations. You see your evaluation resulted in 93% favorable, or at least exceeds or meets the standards with regard to planning, transport availability, and service monitoring. With billing, 86% favorable, that they met or exceeded that standard, and 86 for reporting. In the administration area, again, high marks, 93% with regard to eligibility and reservations, that 93% of you feel they meet or exceed that standard. Trip allocation, 86% feel they meet or exceed it, and 7% felt that it was unacceptable. There was no place for them to make notes, so whoever made that comment, if at the end of this you wanted to embellish a little bit to have us to understand why that rating, we will be happy to hear that. Scheduling, 86% meets or exceeds, and 14% felt that it was not applicable, or that they didn't have enough information to be able to evaluate, which is understandable. And then with regard to coordination of providers, 78% felt that they met or exceeded the standard, and 22% at that point felt that it was not applicable, or that they didn't have enough information. Cost effectiveness, based on the information that was provided, the data that was provided to you to make this evaluation, 93% of you felt that Access Links meets or exceeds that standard. With the local performance measures, in this section, you rated how Access Links performed compared to the performance measures that were established by this board and the TDSP that was in force at that time. With regard to on-time performance, 43% felt that they satisfactorily met, and 57% felt that it needed improvement or was unsatisfactory. This is consistent with what you all hear from riders when they call in. It's consistent with what you hear at your public hearing. And so there are the challenges that you understood that were out there and that continue to exist, but you also heard the report from Access Links about the improvements that they are making and the actions that they're taking to get this better. Call hold time, again, given the significant improvements that have been met in this area, 93% of you felt that they have satisfactorily met this with that 1 minute and 7 second hold time. And as a reminder, the Links team noted that the low call time was indicative of the lower than normal call volumes that they were experiencing during this reporting period. And so there is a concern that you will hear later on in your priorities that you want to make sure that they're able to maintain this level or even improve it. Commendations and concerns, 64% of the raters felt that Access Links is satisfactorily meeting this, having received 3.18 concerns per 1,000 trips, and 36% feel improvement is needed or that it was unsatisfactory. And again, due to lower trip volumes and operator shortages, this was the reason that they may have received more concerns that were sent in. And you heard Trish earlier mention the number of days that it took for them to clear a complaint or a concern that was submitted to Links. And we would note that as an opportunity for for us to pass along that as an improvement that is needed with access links. So shifting their riders to the most appropriate mode, that was one of the access links goals that was established to transition TD customers who are able to use other modes. 71% of you felt that they were satisfactory in this area, and 28% feel that there is either needs improvement or unsatisfactory. Many of the raters stated that better use of technology could have helped in this area over this rating period. Although, as I reviewed some of the results from the rider survey, which was open at the same time as your survey was, and you're going to hear the results in just a moment, I was reminded that many of the riders who use this system don't necessarily have access to computers. And you'll hear that in just a moment when I share some of the results from the rider survey. Availability of vehicles with regard to demand, 93% felt that they satisfactorily met this goal. Customer service accessibility, 86% felt they met the goal. And then with public awareness, again, speaking to the recommendation to make better use of technology and social media and YouTube and those opportunities for public awareness. You all felt that there could have been more use of that, especially during the times when people were captive in their homes and there were captive audiences to Zoom, if you will. But 50% felt that they had satisfactorily met that with one public outreach event, and 50% feel that it either needs improvement or was unsatisfactory. So overall, your rating of links is pretty consistent between your 2019-2020 evaluation and 2021 evaluation. The majority, 13 of the 14 raters, felt that Access Links meets or exceeds the standards that have been established. And none in this rating period felt that the standards fell below in any of the categories, so by comparison. So your top priorities, we kind of synthesized these from the remarks that you had placed in your evaluation. It continues to be your number one priority is a continued advancement and improvements with regard to on-time performance. Secondly, that kind of flipped in this year, the number of comments that were received having to do with public outreach and awareness and call hold time. Is third. Still important, still your priorities, still room for improvement. And Mr. Chair, I will pause there for any questions that any of you may have with regard to your ratings of the Community Transportation Coordinator before I move into the community's response to the customer evaluation or survey. All right, well, thank you so much. I'm going to go now to the Access Links customer survey. Lisa, if I can get you to help with that little green button in the right corner there that takes me to the other. So the 2022 Access Links customer survey, it was open during the same time that your evaluation was being conducted. And we were a little disappointed in the number of responses that we received. We received a total of 77 responses, which is not a good response rate. We had this out on the streets from March 7th to March 28th. Messages were placed on Access Links' call hold message, letting all of the riders know that this was available. Metro Plan Orlando tweeted, tagged, posted, emailed. We did it all. We put it out there. But this is the response that we received to the survey. I'm not really sure, other than when they were on that call hold time and those abandoned calls, didn't hear that it was happening. So we would have liked to have had more but this is what we were given. So with that, we asked about the reservation system and how they would rate the friendliness of it. 59% felt that it is either excellent, good, or fair. 41% feels that it needs improvements. And by the way, members, a copy of the full report and results is included in that supplemental folder that's in front of you. I am not going to go through all of those comments that were added, but I will call attention to a few of them because this is based on people's experiences that was at a moment in time. They share stories and experiences in their responses. So some of the comments are that it takes a long time to get through, hold times can be long, it's getting better, but still needs work. I'm a new rider, 3 round trips, fabulous service, every service rates excellent. It was satisfactory, and one rider noted that the young lady who helped was very good. And again, there are 42 total comments that were made, and I've left them for you to read. With customer service, we asked them about their interaction with the reservationist or the driver. 65% felt that their interaction on that date and that time was either excellent or good, and 23% said that it needed improvement. Some of the comments included that the drivers were friendly and courteous, that it was acceptable, and that they are very nice and helpful. My favorites, I have my favorites in terms of the drivers. So when I'm lucky enough to get them, it's always nice. With the appropriateness of the vehicle, and this question has to do with whether the vehicle that arrived to pick them up was the appropriate vehicle for their needs for that day in that ride. And we asked the question, was it for one leg of the trip or was it for both legs? 76% stated that the vehicle that was sent was appropriate for both legs. 15% said yes, but only one way, and 9% felt that the vehicle that was sent for them was not appropriate. Comments included, I'm ambulatory. Yes, the vehicles are appropriate. Another commenter stated that it would be helpful for the buses if they were equipped with USB ports to fully charge cell phones. And vehicles are rather comfortable, and one responded great. Now, members, you're going to notice here as we get further into the presentation, into the responses, I left the response rates up there for a reason, because you'll see that atrophy fell in at some point. And even though this was a pretty short survey, they started to fall off, but then they would come back at the end. And again, we're not really sure as to why that happened, but we're presenting to you the responses that they gave us. The next question had to do with how they would rate the efficiency in scheduling, the on-time performance of access links for going to and returning from their destinations. And you see there that going and coming, about 27 to 28% felt that it was excellent, 23% felt it was good, and the 29% on the way back, 27% felt on the way back that it was good, and 15% felt, 27% felt it was excellent on the way back, and 16% felt that their trip was good. Some of the comments, long wait times for pickups and drop-offs. 9 out of 10 trips are late by about an hour. I was late for doctor's appointments. I hardly ever am on time, is extremely unreliable. And then last comment that I called out here is, as a new rider, I'm very impressed at how easy it is to use the service. My last trip, as always, gets an excellent grade. So we asked them overall, based on their most recent trip, how they would rate access links. 28% felt that it was excellent service, and 18% feel that the service is good, 14% fair, and then 39% feels that it is either unacceptable or that it needs improvement. Comments, I would be miserable. I would be in miserable shape without this service. Very accommodating. The drivers are good with my special needs son. Another commenter stated that the whole program needs to be redone. It seems like the drivers take the longest route. And that comment had to do with the GPS system, which you have heard about multiple times in recent years. I've seen a big improvement to what was taking place throughout the past couple of years. And then lastly, I'm grateful for the transportation. I personally prefer vans that make me feel most comfortable. So the next couple of questions, we wanted to know how the riders pay for their fares, and also if this was a way that Lynx might be able to do a better job of those public outreach and public awareness. Because you have here 61% use cash or prepaid tickets, 31% use the Paw Pass application or the app, and 9% use some other method. And that other method is someone else paying for them. When asked the question about how is the service and thinking beyond their current trip to experiences that they kind of do in totality, how do they feel if it's gotten better, if it stayed the same, or if it's worse? 33% felt that the service has gotten better. 43% feel that it has stayed the same, and 24% feel that it has gotten worse. So here we wanted to know about whether they are aware of some of the services that Access Links provides in terms of whether or not they knew that they could make arrangements using their online web access. 41% or 29 of the respondents stated that they are aware of Access Links' web access, and 59% were unaware of the ability to make their reservations online. So next, we bifurcated that question. We said, okay, if you have used it, what was most useful? Or if it was useful at all, 69% found that it was helpful or very helpful. And again, others were either neutral or didn't find it helpful at all. And I think that this is one of those places, again, that we could look to Links to provide a little more information to the riders so that those numbers change and go more into the helpful and very helpful. Because one of the things with any transportation trip is going to be managing that expectation. What we hoped we would hear was that people might have been reluctant to use the Access Links web access. We didn't hear that in those comments. So we're just still not sure why they felt that it's not helpful. So we asked the question if they are, whether they knew that Access Links provided this web access and that it's a secure website, and if they were able to use this to change, request, confirm, or cancel their trips or reservations, or to access and edit a customer's information 24 hours a day. Were they aware that the website existed? 42% said yes, 39% said no, and 17% said that they were unsure. Again, this is a way by which Links can better inform those riders. We asked the question, would text messaging updates help? 79% of those who responded to this question said that text messaging, managing expectations, if they were to receive a text message letting them know, my ride is here, my ride is on the way, my ride is late, my ride will be here in however many minutes, 79% felt that that would help, and the 21% felt that they either know or that they can't text. The 6% that said that they can't text is that they don't have access to text messages. So again, we have to be cognizant of the fact that although we say technology is the answer to everything, it really isn't, because there are some members of our community that still don't have that access. So keeping with the types of updates they would like to receive, we asked that question. Would you say it would be helpful to receive ride updates via text? So what updates would you like to see? The responses were estimated time of arrival. 93% felt that if they just knew what time their ride was going to be showing up, and if that showed up on their text messages, that would be helpful. And I think that will help cut down on the number of phone calls that customer service, those CSRs receive. Ride status, whether their ride is delayed or canceled or on time, 84% felt that that would be helpful for them. And then driver information, similar to what you would get if you were to book an Uber, saying that your driver is going to be arriving, they're going to be driving this type of vehicle. As some riders have stated that they don't know what kind of vehicle is going to show up when that vehicle arrives. So to have that at their fingertips would be helpful. Other comments were that customer service should be able to text, and that estimated time of drop-off, especially if a trip is delayed, would be helpful. So with that, we wanted to just review those results with you, because we feel that they really align with your 3 top priorities that you are bringing forth to Access Links for them to be able to better meet the needs of the community and the riders that they serve. That concludes my presentations. These will be rolled into that Transportation Disadvantaged Service Plan document that you all approved earlier and transmitted along with that to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged. If there are any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
I have one. This is probably for you, Norm, but, they always are, aren't they? I wonder if it would be at all beneficial or feasible to put a link to the information for Access Links on the city and county websites, Facebooks, those types of things. Again, we have the technology versus the non-technology people that can do that, but that might help for visitors that are looking to move to this area, and many people will go to those websites, for government help, and maybe see something about Access Links and links. That might help. And do you go to senior centers, maybe support group type events to talk about the website and the new technology, and see if you can get the message out there, or use the talking heads, like people like, I don't want to call you a talking head, Marilyn. Okay, and Bob and myself that are involved with different organizations, like I'm on the board for the Center for Independent Living and things like that, to maybe shoot information to us that we could bring up at our next meetings, because a lot of the members that I know use Access Links.
I think, excuse me, all those are great ideas. During the time period that we're talking about, from, 2019 into just beginning this year, there were no community events.
Yes, I understand.
If there were, they were virtual in nature. But as far as going out to assisted living or senior housing or anything of that sort, even schools for that matter, was just non-existent. So we're going to see that trend start up again, and we will get back into that habit and make that very aggressive. As far as reaching out to the counties that we serve and talking about working and coordinating on the websites, we can certainly take a look at that and see if that's feasible. I mean, obviously from a technology standpoint it is, but it's just a matter of space and where it would be
And
placed,
staff,
et cetera. So, so all great ideas though.
And one last thing, I was happy to help with Sunrail when they got up and running, and they did a series of YouTubes using myself and some other people to talk about how to use Sunrail if you are a person with disability, using the terminals and things like that. if there was some type of a video or something that people could go to learn about the website and the technology that you're using, or check here for new updates. And perhaps our November meeting, if you're able to do something like that, show that video at that meeting, because I know we usually get people, hopefully this year, that show up to that November meeting
Sure.
to maybe, compliment and maybe have suggestions, and that might,
Yes,
calm the waters a little bit, if they aren't knowledgeable about that.
absolutely.
Okay.
Great ideas. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
So, Virginia, I know this is always a tough one, because I think we had this conversation even last year. And I was going to take what she said, but actually go further. You know where a majority of your trips go, whether it's dialysis or certain locations. Have we ever thought of promoting with a QR code or a website on slips at the dialysis centers as these folks are coming in, to let them know that it's that time of year that we need their feedback so we can improve the services? With all due respect, I think the one that skipped a lot was me, because I couldn't answer those questions. So even though we promoted on Twitter and all these kind of things, if the audience isn't there, why would they fill it out? You know what I mean? Like, the questions are really targeted to access links providers. But I am actually very shocked at how little people even understand the paratransit that we even have here in Central Florida. And I'm going to go further and say my colleagues at the county, So if it doesn't hit you directly, and obviously everyone here, it hits us directly. For me, I was passionate to be on this board because for 7 years, my mother used this. But if you're not connected, or if you don't know someone, it's hard to engage that audience. And so I'm thinking that I love some of her ideas, but I think we need to really look at where the people are coming from, And if that is dialysis, if that is a certain clinic, a certain facility, we need to kind of go the old-fashioned way and hand out reminders that they can either scan with their phone or they can log in, and kind of make it a campaign of, it's that time of year, let us know how we can improve. And I think that could, it's very sad. How many people ride paratransit per year? You don't have to have the exact number,
Well, unduplicated, probably 13,000.
So with 76, we didn't even get 1%. So that is, and I'm sure that you've gotten enough more complaints than what that number is.
I'm not going to share that with you.
Miss
but,
Marilyn Baldwin, you've gotten
it
more
might be a little higher than that, yes. So, yes,
and
yes,
then,
Commissioner, we definitely,
Yeah,
Right.
And I totally agree. Whatever reason, we're not hearing from the riders. But in our individual meetings that we go to, I never attend a meeting that transit doesn't come up. Paratransit, it always does. But what is disturbing is that the general population does not know about
No clue.
access links. And I think that is a real concern, because they're going to wait until they have a crisis in their family and need these services, and they don't know that they exist.
I agree. And we've gotten a complaint in front of the Board of County Commission. You guys are aware of it. So where's the disconnect of them realizing they can be heard? And so like I said, I think we need to consider, and maybe next year we can all kind of group together and put our ideas to help you in this endeavor prior to and not after. But I think hotspots are really a target way to get your folks as they're coming off or they're coming on, especially if they're giving comments to the drivers. Hey, do you know we're doing, it's that time of year, we need your feedback.
Right.
we did do seat drops, and that, I'm sorry, Virginia, but we did do seat drops. We worked with the team here at Metro Plan, and we had information available in the vehicles and that sort of things. Now, QR code scanning or work with like the dialysis, we did not do, or employment centers or other medical facilities. But we did put things in the vehicles so that if individuals.
I'm blind, I don't know that's in
Understand. Appreciate that.
And Mr. Chair, also, if I can also just remind this board that this was a targeted survey to transportation disadvantaged riders.
Correct.
They're in that category. Still not happy with the result of the number who responded, but we targeted emails for those who had email addresses that were on file, that were valid email addresses, that were on file with links. We sent it directly to them. We sent them reminders. We sent them an extension. And again, it was available to anyone who wanted to take it through Access Links or the Links website or the MetroPlan website. So not making an excuse, the larger opinion poll that MetroPlan Orlando does, Commissioner Uribe, we may be able to expand that to get it in front of a lot more people when we're conducting that survey. Again, even if we get ADA responses to this, we kind of set them aside because this is specifically for TD dollars.
Just like that, I think it went out of my mind. Oh, I remember now. I'm not used to being around this many people, it seems like. Yeah, there you go. I just wanted to remind you that we are all ambassadors for you. So if there's any way that we can have, work on like an elevator speech or something so that we're out shopping or just chatting, church or whatever, we have a responsibility, I think, to educate where we can, but we want to make sure that we have the focused message that you want us to give. So wherever you can help us in that endeavor, I think that would be great because we're on this board for a reason, and most of us don't have any problem talking. So, use us.
And if I can add one other thing, Mr. Chairman, before, Maricel has a comment that she'd like to make. In the CTC evaluation document, it asks for one rider. One. We got 77. They're looking for a survey from one rider, and they feel that that's enough. In the actual CTC evaluation document, we go a little bit above and beyond, and we've even done the secret rider. We sign somebody up, and they go and ride the vehicle for a week or two and tell us how that goes, and we would turn that in. But what we found was happening was that the provider figured out who that was, and they got red carpet treatment. So this way we get, what the riders are saying. So thank you all, and Maricel has a comment, and I think we're ready. Please press your button.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to know just how much of this data is sent out to the Hispanic community, because in the Hispanic community also they do use the transportation service and they are in need of the service, but unfortunately with the language barrier, how much effort is put into the Hispanic area where there's information in Spanish, where they're being told about these surveys and the services.
Well, in terms of how we advertise, again, it's targeted emails that go directly to the individual who is eligible to ride the service. It shows up in their email box.
So if they are eligible and they're Hispanic, how would they read that if they can't read English?
That is a good question. I don't think we did this to translate this one into, we did not do that for this one to translate it into Spanish, but that is a point that we will take for the next one because, technology has it to where you can click a button and it translates everything for you. So we will certainly take that.
And for the
next time.
younger Hispanic community, I feel they would probably be able to do that. But for the older Hispanic communities who they don't know how to use the iPhone to interpret or interpret emails, I think that is something that we need to work on as well.
Well, normally we get messages from Access if it's a mass mailing, there's English on one side and Spanish on another. Isn't there, Norm?
That's correct, and our applications are the same way, and so you can ask for Spanish and/or English applications and everything as much as we can. As far as doing, to your point again, doing outreach into different communities, last 2 years has just been non-existent. There's just no way. We weren't invited, they weren't having them, things got canceled, so, we're from that standpoint, we're 2 years of no or very little outreach just because of COVID-19 and just the safety concerns of everybody from staff to the community, so.
Right, and when we advertise our public meetings, the one that Cheryl was mentioning that happens in November, those notices go out to mailboxes and it is English on one side, Spanish on the other side.
Thank you very much.
All right, I know you have a train to catch, so I'll move out of your way.
Hello? Is there anyone online or on a computer or out in outer space that want to communicate with us?
There are no attendees on the virtual side at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone present like to make a comment?
I have not received any requests to speak.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. Are there any written or phone comments submitted before the meeting?
We did not receive any, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next meeting will be on August the 11th. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to make mine quick so he doesn't miss the train. I don't know if you guys are aware, but 2 weeks ago, Orange County passed an effort to move the penny tax to the ballot in November. And I wanted to share something very important on this, is that paratransit would actually get a hefty amount of funding as well as links, and we're talking of a tune of at least 241 buses, more covered bus locations, a better system that would work more rapidly. And I would ask you all to get some information on this. The way it breaks down right now, 45% of the funding, and we're talking over $600 million a year, would go to public transit, which is paratransit, links, and Sunrail. The other 45% would go to infrastructure, which includes roads, sidewalks, lights, and public safety. And then 10% would go to the individual cities and the county. This could definitely change the dynamic of transportation in Orange County if we're able to pass this measure. But it's particularly exciting to know that paratransit could be well-funded and those folks could do what they need to do. And when we talk about links, we're talking about millions of dollars, almost triple what we currently give links through our general. I'm at least advocating for you to look into it, okay, and see if you think it's worth it. But the caveat to all of this, even though it is a penny tax increase, is that over 50% of this funding would be paid by our tourism industry. We average about 76 million people who visit Orange County every year, and they come and spend money. So it could be a huge effort, and it could really change how we do these meetings. We can tell Norm, just hire people and get a new bus and do whatever you want, But I wanted to at least provide that because it's not on people's radar. Many people are not paying attention and they have no clue that it's happening. And if it does not go through, we're going to see things get much worse. So thank you very much, everyone. That's all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maribi. All right, between the script and this agenda, sometimes they say two different things. So we've made, according to this, we've requested public comments and everything. There is a Quality Assurance Task Force meeting July 26, 2022 at 10 a.m. I heard it was in Orlando. This doesn't say where. And then the next meeting of this group will be August 11th, 2022. And then November the 10th, 2022 is the annual public workshop. Does anyone else have anything to say? Yes, ma'am?
Cafe is at the end of the month here in Orlando, I believe at the Hyatt. And then, of course, our Special Olympics that are coming up in June. So
Absolutely.
these are wonderful activities for the disability community and their families.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And there's going to be thousands and thousands of participants. Orlando, Central Florida region should really shine. Have I committed myself to everything I'm supposed to do? Okay. This meeting is adjourned and we can go catch buses and trains. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.